Solomon Wars, Chapter 2, The Empowerment Law. After the Gelder Wars, guns and swords were strictly illegal, banned, and forbidden across the new Mantelosian Empire. These extreme restrictions on swords, any bladed weapon, and guns were ruthlessly enforced. Only the military and police were allowed to carry swords. Guns were prohibited entirely due to the ability to kill instantly and were seen as dishonorable. The punishment for anyone, anywhere, at any time for having a gun is the death penalty by public gas chamber execution. For any bladed weapon, even a knife, the punishment is public burning at the stake execution. There is a common kitchen in every community across the empire where a police officer allows the usage of a knife for cooking purposes and closely monitors it. The very few civilians who carried swords and bladed weapons were seen as socially superior, given special permits by the empire's security apparatus. Guns simply do not exist in this empire because gun is absolute power for a single individual. With a gun, you instantly kill, which is godlike absolute power, instant death capability, and absolute equality. The realization that regardless of who you are and what you can do, all are equal in front of the gun. So it is unlawful and immoral to even exist for the Mantelosian founding fathers. There are around 7 independent polities in the outer rim of the Mantalosa Empire. They do not threaten it in any way, nor do they have any capability. They do acknowledge the Empire's ultimate authority. The Empire just lets them loose because they believe they need some misfit adventurer cultures to explore the galaxy further and do some of their dirty work within the Empire. These are the 7: the Tellurian kingdom of the planet Telluris, the Quantari syndicate system, a star system of mafias, gangsters, and criminals, the Veltrix city state, a rogue planet without a star, the Neovaris kingdom of the Neovaris planet, the Synthara Republic, which is the only democratic state planet with voting and elections, peaceful transition of power, independent judiciary, free speech, except any criticism of the empire, freedom of movement, no slave class, and a small Christian population outside of Chiron, and human rights laws for its citizens. The Zerathic Cauldrion Principality of the small planet Zeratha, ruled by a prince and a line of princes before him, a princely dynasty, and the Elindor Vethar spaceship. Elindor Vethar being a cylindrical space station connected with a ring-world megastructure of 5 million humans, the farthest major outpost of the Mantalosan Empire, which has relatively autonomous decision-making capability. The Tellurian Kingdom's population is 4 million. The Quantari Syndicate System's population is 13 million. The Veltrix city-state population is 5.8 million. The Neovaris Kingdom population is 7 million. The Synthara Republic population is 39 million. The Zerathic Cauldrion Principality population is 5 million. And the Elindor Vethar spaceship population is 5 million. The whole of the human inhabited planets constitute a spacefaring medieval civilization, with the pockets of wealth, technology, and power of the core empire. This is the Mantalosa realm. But there must be humans outside of this. Almost certainly must be. Those who are not in its grasp. There could be, or there are, more than 340 billion humans in the galaxy. Faster than light travel, ultra speed travel is limited after all. It is all dependent on the blue particles, which are scarce. Ancient hypersleep travel of 700 million humans 12,384 years earlier on the Trexotran megastructure space station in cryogenic sleep pods with its 10 gigantic cylindrical modules attached to the central module spinning for centrifugal artificial gravity, each module carrying 70 million humans, all kinds. This is the incredibly ancient history of the human race. This occurred after the Milky Way galaxy's destruction. How, why, or by whom is unclear and unknown. This event, the apocalypse of a galaxy, is a mystery. The ancient hypersleep travel from Earth to a series of habitable systems in the Andromeda galaxy was spearheaded by a man of greatness, genius, goodness, heroism, and legend and divinity, Solomon was. The name of Andromeda was replaced 12,000 years ago, renamed and known by all, then and today, as the Solomon Galaxy. The space station that Solomon was created and led us to new life is the Trexotran space station. Solomon was the first and only titled and declared supreme leader of the galaxy. He lived and later died in a humble manner. His space station, the Trexotran, is known, called, and referred to by most as the Ark of Solomon or Solomon's Ark, and it is lost and has never been found ever since. The interstellar Mantelosan Empire is at the center of the Solomon Galaxy, the beating heart as it is believed. In the Empire today, the four most known greatest legendary men of all time are the current Emperor Hugo Walker, the famous warlord Samson Gelder, the ancient noble and extraordinary and heroic Grand Supreme Leader and founder Solomon was, after whom the entire galaxy is named after, along with the minority that worships a strange, tortured, and executed human being, whom they call God and who they say lived after death, Jesus Christ. Across the thousands of years, various interstellar kingdoms and empires which rose and fell searched for the ancient Ark of Solomon, but never found it. Even today, the empire has a Solomon's Ark investigation team, although this has never been the central or main priority of any monarchy. It is more like a hobby for the royals of all ages, believing it held secrets for something great because it was the life raft of humankind. Trexotran is forever hidden or got destroyed. In theory, time travel moves through time. The multiverse holds infinite alternate parallel worlds, and quantum reality runs on probabilities instead of certainties. The Walker dynasty also has a time travel multiverse and quantum research facility called TMQ facility, which has gone nowhere and has nothing to show for. Decades have gone with no results of success, and it has not worked. But this exotic technology fetish does exist among the powerful of Mantalosa. And what is the ultimate desire for the of the extremely rich and powerful? It is to be immortal, to be forever. And the only man who is known to be immortal and most powerful is Grandsire Merlin Ossoff of the Walkers, unmarried, childless, and a loyal servant to the throne. This guide to the Walkers has been living for well over 100 years. Decades and decades ago, Emperor Sean Walker, a wise and noble ruler of the Mantalosa realm, fell deeply in love with the crown princess of planet Chiron. She loved him too. Her name was Sophia. They were married joyfully in a grand and resplendent ceremony attended by the royalty of the entire empire, and Sophia was declared the empress. Many crown princesses across the empire envied her. For a while, they were destined to become queens of their planets. Sophia's fortune had elevated her directly from princess to empress, yet no level of power or wealth, it seems, can ever truly satisfy the human heart. Years passed after their marriage, and a son was born to them, a child they named Merlin Ossoff Walker. A few years ago, a few years later, tragedy struck when Empress Sophia died, leaving Emperor Sean heartbroken and consumed by grief. Time moved on, and young Merlin Ossoff grew into manhood. At 18, he stood tall and promising. In just 3 years, Emperor Sean planned to name him the new emperor of the Mantalosan peoples. During this time, Emperor Sean journeyed from Renosa to Chiron, and while hunting in the vast emerald forests of that planet, encountered a woman of breathtaking beauty. She was a commoner, yet her charm and grace were irresistible to the emperor. Her name was Scarlet. At first, she was unsure of his affection, but soon her heart too surrendered to love. They spent blissful weeks together before Sean proposed marriage, and she accepted. However, many of the emperor's advisors objected fiercely. A royal, especially a reigning monarch, had never married a commoner before. Such a union would shatter ancient traditions. But love overcame reason, and Emperor Sean resolved to marry her nonetheless. Then came Father Zorro, Scarlet's father and the chief of her village. He set forth a condition. He would allow the marriage only if Scarlet's child, not Merlin, became the next emperor or empress of Mantalosa. The demand enraged Emperor Sean. In fury, he nearly ordered Father Zorro's execution. Yet Scarlet stood in defense of her father, declaring that she would only obey him, for he was the only one who had cared for her all her life. Torn between love and duty, Emperor Sean saw the cruel impossibility before him. Either allow his only son Merlin to inherit the throne or marry Scarlet and deny Merlin his birthright. It was an agonizing dilemma. In the end, he chose duty over desire and resolved not to marry, allowing his son to succeed him. But when Merlin also learned of the situation, his boundless love and devotion for his father moved him to an act so profound that it would echo through history forever. To grant his father peace and the freedom to love, Merlin made a vow, an oath, so radical it became legend. He renounced his claim to the throne of Mantalosa and swore lifelong celibacy. Before the gathered court and Father Zorro himself, he declared three solemn oaths. He would never claim the throne. He would remain forever loyal to the throne, regardless of who sat upon it. He would never marry or have children, ensuring that no rival heirs would ever challenge Scarlet's line. This was the birth of the vow of Merlin. Merlin Ossoff was a man of unmatched virtue, wisdom, courage, and love, qualities that elevated him to greatness. He would have made a great emperor, his father Sean often said. The vow was so absolute, and Emperor Sean was so moved by his son's sacrifice that he granted him an extraordinary gift, the gift of immortality. None know its true nature, though clearly scientific. Its secrets remain with Merlin alone. He became the most powerful of men, immortal, wise, and legendary, yet forever bound by his own sacred oath and promise and vow. The European heritage Walker dynasty's Emperor Sean Walker and Empress Scarlet Walker had a son, Alden, the rightful heir to the Mantalosan throne. They raised their beloved Crown Prince Alden with immense love and joy for many years, closely protected and guided by the ever wise Merlin Ossoff. But as time passed, political tensions across the vast interstellar empire grew worse. The slavery of Africans had become a massive racial issue threatening the stability of the realm. Yet Emperor Sean refused to use the bone of Renosa to resolve his problems. Then tragedy struck. When Crown Prince Alden was only 9 years old, both Emperor Sean and Empress Scarlet were assassinated with strangulation and stabbing by rogue elements within their own military men who conspired with members of their own personal guard. In the chaos, young Alden barely escaped with his life, saved and shielded by Regent Merlin, who swiftly executed all the traitors and restored order to the empire. From that moment onward, Merlin became Alden's protector, teacher, and guide, nurturing him to grow into the ruler destiny had chosen him to be. Under Merlin's wisdom, Alden was trained, taught, and shaped, a prince forged in sorrow but strengthened by purpose. Alden Walker was of mixed blood, half royal and half commoner, descended from his mother Empress Scarlet's humble ancestry. This lineage gave him a natural empathy toward the lower classes of the empire, those who were neither royal, noble, nor aristocratic. He despised the institution of slavery, especially the African slavery that plagued the empire. Though other peoples were enslaved as well, the treatment of Africans was excessively cruel, and Alden could not bear it. When he finally ascended as emperor, Alden Walker, he emerged as an enlightened ruler, a visionary unlike any before him. He proclaimed the Alden Code, more popularly known as the Empowerment Law, a grand reform he believed would eliminate the empire's deepest injustices. Yet, as history often teaches, solving one problem can give birth to another. The Empowerment Law or Alden Code established a strict racialized division of labor across the interstellar empire. Emperor Alden believed this to be the righteous path, a system designed to secure the rights and dignity of all human races inhabiting the empire's many worlds. As racial hatred and discrimination had grown unbearable, Alden sought to end the conflict once and for all by making each race indispensable to the functioning of civilization. Since the Europeans and Asians were already numerous and powerful, Alden made no changes for them. Instead, he created what would become the central pillar of imperial power, both famous and infamous across generations. The Africans, once enslaved, came to view it as the liberation of their civilization and culture. Alden had seen firsthand the respect, loyalty, and discipline of the African slaves he had met, and it moved him deeply. Thus, he granted them honor, power, and purpose, transforming them into the only elite force known throughout history as the African Guard. Only black Africans were educated and trained for the defense and armed forces of the empire. Only the Africans under this law, which all of them enthusiastically accepted. The power of Emperor Alden Walker grew enormously with this reform. All the other races were systematically stripped of their weapons and removed from their positions, while Africans were elevated to take their place. The African Guard now made up the military, police, law enforcement, secret service, secret police, security forces, and intelligence network of the entire interstellar Mantalosa Empire. The African Guard was utterly and unwaveringly loyal to the throne. Men and women who now lived better lives under a government mandated purpose of control, unity, order, and stability. Together, the Walker dynasty and the African Guard became the supreme rulers of the realm. Emperor Alden also elevated the minority multiracial peoples, granting them sole authority over all space transportation systems, known as the neutrals. They served all others and were required to maintain impartial in all political and cultural affairs. Yet they held absolute control and monopoly over launch, re-entry, and space travel for every human within the empire. The indigenous peoples were given authority over rituals and ceremonies, forming a sacred priest class that unified the empire's spiritual and cultural traditions. Thus, the African Guard, the neutrals, and priest class became the cornerstone of Alden's policies, a racially divided yet empowered order as he firmly believed. No special laws were made for Asians, Europeans, and Hispanic planet of Chiron, even though his mother was Hispanic commoner, Scarlet, or for the Lamprians, the Jewish planet, due to them already having vast population in various fields and professions. Emperor Alden Walker married two women, Amanda and Amelia, both Nordic Europeans from Yarika's royal family, who became the queens of Mantalosa. Queen Amanda Walker gave birth to Mirandus Walker, and Queen Amelia Walker gave birth to Hugo Walker, Emperor Alden's two sons born just 1 year apart. All of this unfolded under the wise and powerful watch of Merlin Ossoff, their grandsire and Alden's most trusted right hand man, now called the Minister, whose guidance shaped the destiny of the Walker bloodline. Alden Walker's eldest son was Mirandus Walker, and the second eldest was Hugo Walker, the two greatest joys of his life. Both were trained, educated, and guided by Merlin Ossoff. Yet, as they grew older, they became increasingly hostile, both verbally and physically toward each other. Their rivalry deepened into emotional aggression after they learned of their respective futures. Amanda and Amelia too turned against each other, for only one of their sons could be the successor, though Alden loved them both equally and dearly. After coming of age, Mirandus Walker was chosen to succeed and become the emperor, ruler over all the kings, princes, archdukes, grand dukes, dukes, and lords of the 124 planets. But Merlin Ossoff, ever observant, began to notice Hugo Walker's malevolent nature, and he warned Alden Walker, the emperor, blinded by love, dismissed his concerns. Merlin had seen the warning signs, Hugo's cruelty towards small innocent animals, a clear reflection of something dark within him. I am just 1 year younger. Why am I not worthy of being emperor? Hugo thought to himself, consumed by jealousy and envy. His anger grew until it became a storm. One day he entered Amanda Walker's chamber in the royal palace, mother of Mirandus, and as she lovingly embraced him, asking, "My son, for what purpose are you here?" His rage erupted. Driven by jealousy and madness, he stabbed her 4 times, fatally killing her. As he left the room, Hugo encountered his own mother, Queen Amelia, in the palace corridor. Without hesitation, in blind fury, he slit her throat, then stabbed and killed her as well. The horror shook the entire empire. Merlin Ossoff ordered his immediate arrest and imprisoned him in the castle jail, where he awaited trial for his crimes. Emperor Alden, shattered by grief, trauma, and horror, abdicated the throne. Before stepping down, he crowned and enthroned Mirandus Walker as the new Emperor of Mantalosa. Soon after, Emperor Mirandus went to the castle jail to confront his brother. "You will face justice for murdering our mothers, you monster," said Mirandus coldly. "I am more capable than you'll ever be, Mirandus. Remember that," Hugo replied from his cell. Hugo Walker was sentenced to life imprisonment by decree of Emperor Mirandus Walker. In time, Emperor Mirandus married Melissa, and together they had 4 sons in 4 years. The first and eldest Crown Prince Michael Walker, followed by Prince Connor Walker, Prince Adam Walker, and Prince Jack Walker. They also adopted a boy from the great house of Renosa. From a great house of Renosa, who was the second oldest in age, Prince Jericho Nova. All were given these fancy titles but are just babies of Melissa Walker, the Empress. Former Emperor Alden passed away, and there was a grand funeral for him, honoring his brilliant legacy of reform. Emperor Alden appointed Commander Doom Harris of the African Guard, a black African, most powerful after the Emperor himself. A strong, huge, tall man with a tough look and a militaristic uniform, a symbol of the iron fist of the empire. With a classic full beard, the topmost central supreme leader of all of the African Guard, its military, police, intelligence, security, and secret service, was having great problems in dealing with the planet Quantum. Planet Quantum was very problematic for him, causing problems for the royal government and African Guard. It was technological and independent in all but name, now looking likely they will defy and declare full secession, which would cause massive problems for the commander Doom Harris, a great burden for years to deal with. Soldiers he has to sacrifice for this cause, and this succession that would cause chaos across the interstellar empire, causing copycat behavior from other worlds. Commander Doom Harris requested both Emperor Alden and now Emperor Mirandus to use the ancient gigantic boomerang shaped orbital space weapon, the Bone of Renosa, with its 25 iron merzoplasma spikes on Quantum. But they both rejected and forbid him, frustrating him further. Prince Hugo Walker in Castle Jail turned 28 in age. When all hope of using the Bone of Renosa to solve his problems was gone, Commander Doom Harris sensed an opportunity. The Bone of Renosa was used only once before, during the Gelder Wars. He went to Castle Jail into the cell corridor and approached Hugo Walker in the cell, inside the dim corridor of the Castle Jail. Doom Harris said, "Hugo." Hugo Walker turned slowly toward the voice, eyes dull with years of confinement. "Hugo." "Hey, Mr. Doom." Doom Harris stepped closer, his heavy boots echoing. "I will make you emperor." For a moment, Hugo only stared, disbelieving. Then his eyes sharpened, a faint light returning to them. Hugo said, "Why would you help me?" He looked around. "Is anyone listening?" Doom said, "No one, just us. You've grown older, Hugo, and you have a rightful claim to the throne." Hugo said, "Yes, of course. How are you going to do it?" Doom said, "First, I have demands, promises. I need your word before anything else." Hugo said, "What is it? Tell me. I'll give you what you want if you make me emperor. You have my word." Doom Harris leaned in, his voice dropping to a dark whisper. "The Bone of Renosa. You will let me use it as soon as possible to completely eliminate and totally destroy planet Quantum. I want authority over 5 planets as my personal property, where I can do whatever I please. And I want the upper command of the African Guard, myself and my peers, to enjoy certain luxuries." Hugo Walker smiled faintly, eyes glinting with ambition. "Consider it done," Hugo Walker said. Doom Harris said, "The quelling of Quantum, no, its annihilation will give you a glorious reign, my emperor. Keep this only between us." With a cold nod, Hugo turned away. Commander Doom Harris stepped out of the corridor, leaving the cell behind, his treacherous plot already in motion. Doom Harris paused and returned to the jail cell. Hugo looked back at him. Commander Doom said, and I will be your chief advisor, not that minister, Merlin Ossoff, that immortal creature. Hugo said, of course, he replied, a faint smile crossing his face. Commander Doom Harris marched toward the royal chamber, where Emperor Mirandus and Empress Melissa slept, flanked by his personal guard, 13 of the most elite soldiers in the empire. The heavy doors opened, and they entered the outer chamber in grim silence. All 14 men stood in cold, eerie stillness before the 10 sword armed royal guards who protected the inner chamber where the Emperor and Empress lay napping. It was evening. The air was heavy, the light dim and red from the sinking sun. One of the royal guardsmen stepped forward, uneasy. Commander Doom, what brings you here? He asked. Doom's voice came low, dark, and otherworldly. A betrayal is going to happen. The guard frowned. What? What betrayal? Then, without warning, the chamber erupted into hell. In an instant, sudden, random, systematic, brutal, and grotesquely graceful Commander Doom Harris turned on his own elite soldiers. His swords flashed like lightning, cutting through flesh and bone. Legs and arms were hacked away, bodies split open both vertically and horizontally. Heads rolled across the floor, blood spraying in hot red arcs that painted the stone walls. The screams were short lived. Only the clash of steel and the sound of meat torn apart filled the room. Within moments, the 13 elite soldiers lay dead, butchered beyond recognition, their bodies and body parts scattered across the chamber. The 10 royal guardsmen, confused and horrified, raised their swords, but Doom Harris was already upon them. He moved like a machine of death, a blood-soaked giant in a black militaristic uniform and a bloody beard. He cut them down one by one, his blade tearing through armor and flesh, stabbing, slashing, crushing until the chamber was a slaughterhouse. When it was done, Doom stood alone amidst the carnage, blood dripping from his sword, his boots submerged in red. From within the inner chamber, Emperor Mirandus and Empress Melissa stirred awake, startled by the horror. Before they could react, a calm, confident voice echoed through the blood drenched silence. My Emperor, there has been a conspiracy. I have to get you to safety now. Hearing his loyal soldier, Commander Doom Harris's familiar tone, Miranda stepped out, only to freeze in horror at the sight. The floor slick with blood, mutilated corpses, strewn like broken dolls. What? What is this, Harris? What happened? He demanded. Before another word could be spoken, Commander Doom Harris moved with lightning speed. His sword drove deep into Mirandus's heart, piercing through armor and flesh. The Emperor gasped, wide-eyed and Doom expressionless, ripped the blade free, slitting his throat, and then decapitating him in one clean stroke. Empress Melissa screamed, cry that echoed through the palace. Doom turned to her, his face a mask of cold rage, and stabbed her 7 times, each thrust deliberate, merciless, and final. When it was done, he stood amidst the slaughter, blood soaked, breathing heavy, victorious and monstrous, as silence reclaimed the chamber once more. Commander Doom Harris strode into the royal bedroom, his boots leaving red footprints across the marble floor. He took Mirandus's imperial crown, gleaming even as blood dripped from his hands, and rushed toward the castle jail. Guards and sentries along the corridors turned in stunned silence, confused and horrified at the sight of their blood-soaked commander. Yet none dared to stop him. Inside the prison, Doom shattered the iron lock of the cell and dragged Walker out into the dim corridor. Without a word, he pressed the bloody imperial crown into Hugo's hands. The greater the risk, Doom said grimly, the greater the reward. Hugo Walker, realizing what had just occurred, began to laugh, first softly, then louder, until it became a wild, manic cackle that echoed through the stone halls. Doom wasted no time. He stormed through the palace corridors to find Ray Platoon, the chief priest of the ruling royal family, an old and wise indigenous man robed in white and gold, facing him. Doom delivered his tale, a web of abominable lies spun with calm precision. It is a quantum conspiracy, he said darkly. Vigilantes from planet Quantum, angered by the African Guard's policies under Emperor Mirandus, infiltrated the palace. They bribed and indoctrinated the royal guardsmen. They struck tonight. Assassins disguised as protectors. The emperor and empress are dead. My elite soldiers fought valiantly, but were slain. I alone survived, and executed the traitors myself. The blood you see is theirs, not mine. They murdered our beloved Highness, Mirandus and Melissa. Ray Platoon hesitated, his face pale, mind racing, yet with doom standing before him, the only surviving witness of the massacre, and with the throne left empty, there was no time to question. We must immediately secure the throne, the priest said solemnly. No weakness, no disorder, no vacancy can exist. Only the oldest walker can inherit the throne. And there he was, the oldest walker, standing beside Commander Harris, Hugo Walker, freed from his cell, the imperial crown still stained with his brother's blood. Together they marched into the Mantelosa throne room, where the royal court awaited in uneasy silence. Under the flickering light of the chamber's torches, Ray Platoon performed the sacred rituals of ascendancy, chanting the ancient words of coronation. The crown was lowered into Hugo's head. The Emperor of Mantelosa, aged 28, enthroned. Commander Doom Harris stood by, blood still drying on his uniform, watching with grim satisfaction. A faint, terrible pride burned in his eyes. And thus began the reign of Emperor Hugo Walker, born in blood, sealed in betrayal, and crowned in silence and darkness.